what Egyptian life was like, as opposed to saying you need to know everything. So give you the idea, as opposed to we need all of the deets. Okay, so here we see an example of an Egyptian social pyramid. It differs from the one in your text for your chapter 5.2 part 2 questions. I want you to use your one in the text. It's just broken up differently, but it's the same idea. You have the pharaoh, the royal family on top. You're going to have nobility. You're going to have people like scribes and doctors and people who make stuff for the pharaoh. Then, it goes to your common, your regular priests, things like that. Eventually to your farmers, your soldiers or sailors. And then we have, slaves on the bottom. This one puts the farmers on the bottom with the slaves, and really, typically farmers would be a little higher up. But, everybody breaks it out differently, and it's the same kind of idea. So, what's up, Nick? Good to see you, bro. All right. We know a lot about Egyptian life. It's kind of cool because we have so many mysteries about the Egyptians, like how they did the pyramids and things. But then for their regular daily life, we actually have a lot of information from the hieroglyphs and the art that they created. We can see the tools they used, the animals they had, the way they harvested things, the way they had their metallurgy. That means working with metal, like blacksmithing, goldsmithing, silversmithing, how they did their fishing. So we know a lot about them, which is really, really cool. Now, for this one right here, you don't need to be writing all of this. You do need to know, though, basically that the peasants' lives revolved around the Nile River, which we see kind of near the bottom. Because basically, when it was flooding, no, you don't have a day off, bro. You are actually going and building pyramids and building, structures for your pharaoh, for your government. They say, okay, it's building season. The flooding season is when they built. Then, of course, you have the planting season where you're going and you're spending all of your time planting your crops. And then, of course, you have the harvesting season when you're going and getting all of that food. That food would be collected by the government and then distributed out so that everybody had everything they needed. And so that people like Karachi, who are artisans, they're not farming, so they also get their food too. So we see here that peasants are the majority of the population. That's going to be the same way for every society. Whenever we have those pyramids, they are not drawn to scale. We would have like a really, really teeny tiny top, and then just a little bit more, and then gargantuan spot at the bottom where most of the people are going to fit under the peasantry, under the regular people that are farmers doing that sort of thing. Now, you don't really have to write anything here, but you need to be aware that the Egyptians had some of the greatest artisans in the world at this time. The things that they are going to create out of gold and marble and other stone and metals is going to be really remarkable. I highly encourage you guys, since we're so close to Baltimore, to go visit the Walters Art Gallery so that you can go and see many of these things. I typically would be taking you to the Walters Art Gallery this time of the year to check out the things from Mesopotamia and Egypt. But alas, with COVID, we are stuck here. But you can go. It is free. It is close. Say, mother, father, parental unit, I would love to journey through time this weekend at the Walters. And seriously, you could go like 1,000,000 times and not see everything. It is like 2 whole buildings full of amazing kind of thing. And there are mummies. You want to see a mummy, right? I know you do. So check it out. They even have a kiddo mummy. It's kind of sad. All right. Yes, Aaron.
Those pictures of ancient Egypt, like those people doing stuff, like that picture below, would the Egyptians create those pictures?
So. All right. Here we see the Egyptian nobility. The only thing I need you to know from this slide that we're going to have to put in, I'll get you in a moment, Madeline Kid, I apologize, is that the vizier had tons of power. They acted basically as the head of the government. We have the pharaoh, of course, in charge of them. But, Pharaoh Nick is too busy getting fanned with giant leaves, getting fed grapes and stuff like that, and partying, where, he leaves his grand vizier, Madeline, to do all the real work. Because, he's got the busy job of, being awesome. Now, we can see how the nobility dressed. Often the nobility, the men would, when they're in a fancy position, go wear one of these things around their neck, this collar, but they wouldn't wear a lot of clothes because it's hot in Egypt. And, everyone, I guess, wanted to work on their tans. Awesome. And, we have girls would often wear like nice white linens and robes and things like that. So we get to see how people look. This woman right here is going and dressed a little bit more fashionably. But we can see and learn what their rich had. The poor, it would be very, very simple and even less because they couldn't afford the fabric and things. Madeline Kate, what was your question or comment, dear?
What was the place in Baltimore called?
The Walters Art Gallery. I'll put it in chat. I think I was just talking about your mama, or to your mamacita, or someone else. I was telling that you should totally go to the Walters because it's awesome. It really is. It's cool. Grider would love it. Now, let's get into fashion. Because we know that the ladies in this class, they definitely want to learn how to be as fashionable as an Egyptian. See, Kaylin's smiling because she's now, I always wanted to be. Okay, so Kaylin, okay, you're beautiful. But you could be more beautiful like an Egyptian. First thing you need to do is shave your head. I know that sounds crazy, but the Egyptians hated any body hair. So, yep, Rylan, you got beautiful hair. Guess what? Shave it off. You know, Danielle, beautiful hair, shave it. Because the Egyptians thought hair was ugly. I'm talking your eyebrows, too. Who wants eyebrows? So, guys, girls, everybody shaves their eyebrows, shaves their head. Now, dudes would just totally be chrome domes and keep their head shaved. If you're poor, you probably had your hair grow out because, you know, you can't, like, afford razors and all that all the time. Yes, your eyebrows, because you can just paint prettier ones on with makeup. Egyptians make some of the first makeup in the world. The way they made red, they smushed up red beetles, and that was how they made part of their makeup. I know, right? Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that just sound so luxurious? Of course, Madeline Kate has her mirror from polished iron right there, so she can go see the shine of her beautiful shiny head. But she wouldn't keep her head beautiful and shiny and shaved. She would actually go and put a wig on. Oh yeah, definitely. It sounds delicious and nutritious and beautiful, Danielle. So what happens is slave girls and servant lower class girls, they would be able to grow their hair out long, and then they would get all cut off. And then they would turn it into these beautiful braids. Now, because Kaylin, like we said, she wants to be the pinnacle of Egyptian beauty. So she is going to wear one of those wigs of human hair, somebody else's hair, to go on top of her shaved head because that was the idea of beauty. Now, here's the thing, though. It's human hair. How many people in here use conditioner? I use an all-in-one shampoo conditioner to really just have this hair looking amazing. Yeah, so you need to do the same thing, but they didn't have, like, conditioner and bottles and all that stuff like that. So what they would do is they would get a bunch of animal lard. That's the fat. And they would mix in, oh, no, it's awesome. Trust me. And they would mix in nice smelling things like rosemary or sage or other beautiful scents. And they would all get mixed into like this big, nice glob, which we see actually happening here. And you'd be wearing your wig. And then they would pop that glob of animal lard with the nice smelling things on top of your head. And then, of course, we know lots of our body heat releases from our head. So it would like melt the animal fat and like go all over it. It would condition and moisturize your fake hair. Because remember, real hair on the head is a go. You'll see, boys, tomorrow over the weekend, the girls are going to be shaving their heads and all getting wigs. It happens all the time. And they look just like Egyptians. And then we're like, wow, the true version of beauty. And then we barf. But so... And basically, this perfume would be like fragrant, and it would go moisturize their fake hair, and it would get all over them, you know. And then you'd smell nice for a while until you smelled like rancid animal fat. But you know, then rinse and repeat, guys. So that's how to have Egyptian beauty. All right. So priests and priestesses, they are going to be a very important part. Their jobs were to go and keep the gods and goddesses happy. You know, we see once again, we have the shaved heads of men. If you're poor, like I said, you wouldn't typically be able to shave your head because getting like a sharp enough razor and all that stuff would be like a special occasion. But you have to remember that the pharaoh was the head priest. So, for example, we never went over a chapter 5.2 part 1. We'll have to do that after. I apologize. You know, he's the head priest. His job is to keep the gods and goddesses happy. All right, here we see just the dichotomy of the different homes. Why would you want to shave your hair? Because they thought body hair was ugly. It's just like when we talk about Japan next year, you know what they're going to think is the most beautiful thing? Black teeth. Yeah. They're going to dye their teeth black. And like the girls are gonna literally like paint their whole faces white, with the exception of like they're gonna even cover up their lips, and then they're gonna draw on like teeny tiny lips, so it looks like their mouth is like that big. Oh, and they shave off their eyebrows too. So it's just what they did.
Also, I have a question. Wait, if they think natural hair or growing your own hair is weird, why would they wear someone else's already grown hair?
Because that was the style. You had these pretty braids. If you look at Egyptian art, every girl's hair is the same. You know why? Because that was the fashion. Just like how today, like people look at fashion magazines and like want to do that. It's just how it was back then. You know? Anyways, we see peasant homes were typically small. Multiple families would live in something this large, and they're going to have, you know, straw or hay or reed kind of roofs. Whereas if you're middle class or rich, your homes would be much, much larger. You'd have multiple rooms. You'd have like a nice courtyard central area, and they're going to be a lot bigger. So, social roles. Dudes were considered heads of the household, and primarily their job is going to be labor or crafting or farming. And guys, you got your jobs because your dads had those jobs, because their dads had those jobs. It's all hereditary, meaning, you know, it's all runs in the family. So if Avery's family were goldsmiths, guess what? Avery doesn't have a choice. He might be terrible doing that kind of thing. He might be way better at botany or something else. Guess what? Avery gets to be a goldsmith. Zachary, his brother, gets to be a goldsmith. Yeah, whether you want to or not. Carson's family, they might be, you know, blacksmiths. Guess what? You're going to be making weapons. You're a blacksmith, Carson, whether you like it or not. You know, so your jobs were, you know, what your families did. Yes, Carson.
So it kind of works like in The Legend of Zelda when Link doesn't have a choice to become a knight because his dad was.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was his uncle.
I don't know.
I think it's his uncle.
Yeah, it is his uncle. Cause
Not Uncle Ben, though. That's
by his side. That's
all right. You know, for girls, one of the nice things about Egypt was actually, for the ancient world, much, 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 much more fair than other parts of the world. Women had similar legal rights to men, where they could own property, they could have their own land, they could divorce if their husband was a jerkbag, they could go and you know, have their own businesses. And so women were able to be economically independent, which is extremely rare in the ancient world. So it was a pretty good place to be a girl. Typically, though, women did have their job, especially the higher up, would be to raise the children, to take care of them, to train their daughters how to take care of a house. But as we saw in some of the art, we know that women took part in some of the labors, like such as farming as well. So it was a little bit more of an equal society. And as we talked about, for kiddos, they learn the jobs from their parents. You very rarely could pick your own thing, you know. Austin is a scribe because his family were scribes. Mariah's making me hungry.
Well, it's good that I'm a scribe because barely anyone could be a scribe.
Exactly. Here we see what an Egyptian school would have looked like. And so for the education, what's really cool about Egypt too, you know, like I said, you don't have to write all of this, but I want you to have some key ideas, is that everybody went to school at least a little bit. Yes, Nicholas.
Did they throw you into a pit if you were bad?
No, that's only what Mr. Kenny does. All right, so don't worry, it's totally fun for the first few seconds, and then you realize, you know, it's bottomless. So scary. Yes, Rylan, sweetie.
My little sister, she always hears you saying about the bottomless pit, and there's this big pile of weeds in our backyard. So she raked them all up and said, if I'm bad, I go in the bottomless pit.
Oh man, Mr. Kenny is already ruining the youth. This is scary. Anyways, so one of the cool things about Egypt, like I was saying, is all kids had some form of education, which is really pretty crazy for the ancient world. It's pretty rare. But a lot of their education, you know, is going to be on morals or doing the right thing, you know, your manners, things like that. Making sure that Madeline Kate knows the proper etiquette to be doing at the right time, to make sure that Gus, you know, knows how to set a dinner table, which is probably not an example, but what etiquette school would do today, things like that. Now, when you're 14, that's when Gus and Caleb and Aaron and the other boys would go start doing their father's jobs and learning how to do their father's work. And that's when girls around 14 would start learning how to take care of the household, how to do the cooking, the cleaning, how to take care of Kitarinas. One of the great things, too, though, is although the nobility was inherited, meaning, you know, let's see, who's a boy I haven't picked on in a while. You know, even though Divine, you know, is a noble by birth, they made sure Divine was learning well, that he had to take tests to be able to do those government jobs. So make sure he could read, make sure he could do the things he had to do. So just because Divine was noble, it meant that Divine would have a noble's education and then be expected to do the noble jobs. We actually wind up having a pretty good bureaucracy, meaning a good government, because the people were trained to be able to do the things they needed to do. Anyways, that was our notes for the day. So I'm going to stop presenting right now. Do we have any questions? And I meant stop recording, but I did